Before we get into today's podcast, I wanted to share that QCon London returns April 7 to 9, 2025. Learn what's next from world-class leaders pushing the boundaries. You'll learn actionable insights from senior software developers working on real-world projects across multiple domains. Learn more at qconlondon.com. Good day, folks. This is Shane Hastie for the InfoQ Engineering Culture Podcast. Today, I'm sitting down with Maria Apazoglou. Maria, did I get that right?
Yeah, that was great.
Maria is in Switzerland. I'm in New Zealand, so we're at the opposite ends of the day. My normal starting point, Maria, is who's Maria?
That's very interesting. So I am Greek, and I think I'm an engineer and a mathematician at heart. So if you ask who's Maria, I think probably someone will say Maria is a mathematician, probably. And then Maria approaches everything with logic. But in terms of what I do, I work at Thomson Reuters. I'm part of the product engineering team within Thomson Reuters, and I am responsible for our AI platform, our BI platform, our content platform, our data platform, and our co-counsel product. So a variety of different applications that support us to use data, use content, and obviously leverage AI either internally or with our customers. I didn't always start in product engineering. I initially was, interestingly enough, I was a quantitative analyst and a developer. That was the beginning of my career. So I started with C++, writing models for traders. And then I moved more and more into, I would say, managing teams and creating, using platforms and creating products with these platforms, moving into Palantir and then moving into HSBC and getting roles that were basically more and more responsibility on creating applications for internal consumers. And yeah, it's been an exciting journey. Definitely the last few years have been extremely interesting with generative AI and what we can do across the ecosystem. So very happy to be at the place that I am at the moment.
Let's dig in first to some of the people in the teamwork in your experience. What makes great teams?
I would say it's for me one of the things that I'm always thinking when I'm hiring. And at this moment in time, I think I have roughly 500 people in my team directly or indirectly in some capacity. So it's really important to have a lot of great teams. I think what makes a great team for me is a mix of individuals, a diversity of individuals. I tend to say sometimes that I love a person that's very hacky, and then I love a person that is very focused on stability because they counterbalance each other. And like for sometimes you need to go really fast, but then sometimes you need to have someone that focuses on how to make things better. And then it's really around, for me, the sense of ownership. I love teams that each person within the team has a high sense of ownership of the work that they're doing. And I think for me, like that sense of ownership drives great quality in the way that they will write their code, in the way that they will create the application, in the way that they will care about the users of their code. So it's probably one of the fundamental things that I look at for anyone that works with me. And then obviously there are other things which are the practices of what is a great team. So you can hire amazing individuals, you can hire individuals that's super smart, have great sense of ownership. But if you don't equip them with the right structure, I think they're not empowered. And that's where for me, like there is kind of like what is the optimum size of the team, which is for me typically around 7 to maximum 10 people that will drive together towards a very defined goal and a defined deliverable that is cut into chunks. And then that they obviously use a lot of like agile practices within the ways of working on like, planning, sprint planning, like making sure everything is tracked in different boards. I think we use some within Thomson Reuters. There's others that like are externally that I know that are very popular, but basically making sure that the work is structured and everything is at the team's disposal from a process perspective and a support perspective to be effective. But definitely, I would say for me, it starts with the individual and a great sense of ownership.
Now, when we were talking earlier, you made the point that you're working with teams dealing with products that are very legacy, built in the 1990s, and others that literally are up to the moment large language model implementation. How do you keep both groups and everything in between engaged and aligned?
So I actually have a principle, and this is a great time of the year because that's where we're kind of creating our OKRs for next year. One of the major things for me is having principles on making sure that everyone within the team has some goal that they're driving towards. And that's the way that I will also express my goals, right? Like for myself. I would never have a goal which will only focus on the latest. Like I wouldn't have a goal for myself or like what I express for my team as a whole, which will be, drive AI. It will be one of, but it won't be the only one. I will also have one which is, ensure we have reliability on our existing systems to support our content processing. Because then, I recognize that that's equally as important. So the first thing for me is making sure that the team and the individuals that I have within my organization feel that they're driving towards something. And they don't just see like only one side of the org or of the world being, promoted or advertised. So when I communicate what we're releasing, I communicate it across. When I communicate our wins, I communicate it across. And the win could be, we sat down a legacy application, or the win could be we released a new LLM like now in our AI platform. I think that's a big part. So having that, I would say, nice distribution of the work and like the deliverables and communicate them in the equal weight, I think makes teams feel more empowered and happy about what they're doing instead of kind of always wanting to shift to something new. And then there's obviously other stuff that we're doing, which is for the teams that are working on some of the more historical applications. What we tend to do is see, okay, I know we are working on X, but let's say instead of moving from, I don't know, Angular 1 to Angular 2, tell me how would you actually redo the application from scratch? And then how can I use AI to actually help you in that journey to redo it from scratch? So kind of encouraging the teams that have been probably maintaining some of the more legacy applications to think about how do you shift them to newer and to using new technologies, which are very similar to what are used for the more modern stack.
You touched there on using AI to make the shift. I know that you've been doing a lot of work, as you put it, democratizing AI within Thomson Reuters. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. So we started, I think maybe a year and a half ago. I'm trying to remember exactly when it was, but obviously there was a big rise of generative AI. And the major question was, okay, how do we now within Thomson Reuters understand that AI is important and make sure that everyone within the company and within the organization has a goal to leverage AI and to understand AI? Because it's not just about our products having a feature on AI, like our legal AI assistants and so on. But for instance, the sales team that is trying to kind of like promote and go to market with these products, they need to understand what AI is. And what a better way than understanding what AI is than them using it on their own, right? But then how does a salesperson use AI? How does someone that is doing marketing use AI? And that's where we're thinking, okay, what shift do we need to make? And the shift that we made was to take one of the tools that was initially built by our Tira Labs community, which is one of the teams here that is more focused on innovation, and make it enterprise wide. So we started with, I think, maybe 400 users at that point in time that were primarily on the technical side, that were basically had a few capabilities of asking, I think, GPT 3.5 at the time, because it was, it feels that it was forever ago, but it really wasn't. But anyway, they were using GPT 3.5, and then we took that on, and then we started making it more enterprise wide. And making it enterprise wide meant on, trying to put in place guardrails of how data is separated, on how, data is stored, on creating reusable components. So when a new model would come out, it would be really easy to be integrated, and then extending that on and on up to the capabilities that it has now, that you can effectively create one application with like, I don't know, 2 to 3 clicks. So there was a technology kind of work that we did to get it to where it is today, to enable like the organization. But more than that, it was really like the training that we did to the organization. One of the great things was that the organization had an initiative of, having X amount of employees using AI. And then we started with, trainings, workshops. I'm not sure, I've never counted that, but I'm pretty sure we've done more than 50 trainings and workshops. We tend to do at least 1 to 2 per week on training, like different teams of different sizes on how to use large language models, what are typical use cases that they can do. We then also created a community where we have users that are sharing with each other ideas. We call it idea space. So basically users can come in and say, hey, I used our tool, it's called OpenArena. I used OpenArena to do X, to go and create a C++ guru, which was like an amazing thing that I saw having started with C++. Or there was another team that used OpenArena to understand how to write better QA testing. Another team that used OpenArena to create better emails and correspondence. And then continue to support the data scientists where they might be using it to connect to different databases and compare responses against a variety of different models across all providers. But really for us was the training and the documentation that we put forward and the certifications that we created, the workshops that we've done, including a pizza workshop that we did I think a couple of days ago, where we trained people on prompting with our newest tool. And then we said, okay, we'll have pizza and prompting. So yeah, I think it really is around shifting kind of the culture and providing the support throughout the journey, and also promoting and letting the community speak for itself about what they've used, because there's nothing better than hearing a user talking about what they've done with the tool. And today we are at 12,500 users from the 400 that we were roughly a year ago. And if we think about that and we think about the total kind of number of employees that we have more than 50% of our employees monthly accessing the tool, which is a fantastic, for me, achievement on what we've done.
I'd love to dig into a couple of things there. One is in the development space, how are your teams and individuals using this large language model, and what are the benefits they're getting?
So we have different tools for our development team. So some of our teams are using GitHub Copilot. And one of the benefits that they're saying is it's a lot faster to start writing code about a given feature. And one of the biggest feedback is how easy it is to write testing. And I'm hoping that the developers that are listening to us, I don't know if they were that me, but they typically developers hate writing testing. I've never seen them enjoy it so much. I don't know. I actually really liked it, to be fair. But anyway, most developers will not focus on testing, right? And I think with GitHub Copilot and tools like this, testing becomes extremely easy and extremely fast. So that's one of the things that we've seen quite a bit increasing. Our testing coverage has increased quite a bit, and the reliability of the code, obviously, as a result of that. We've also seen a lot of teams being able to resolve bugs much easier. So when there is a bug that from a given application, instead of going and searching through the code where it was, they basically have a prompt within the code and they say, okay, find XYZ, what happened wrong. And then there's a suggestion then afterwards how to fix. So that's a lot about how we've seen them use and leverage GitHub Copilot or equivalent tools. And then the other things that we've seen is, as I said, the developers leveraging other tools like OpenArena, which is a wide application of different large language models to do different activities. So some of them, what they do is they might be asking, replacing it more or less than what they would historically have been asking Stack Overflow. So we've seen some trends like that. And predominantly, I think they've also noticed that some models are a bit better than others. They typically might be looking at Claude or Llama, but they have the ability to compare between all of them to figure out which one is the best one for a given ask. And then we obviously see a higher number of usage of that tooling for development of AI. It's an amazing starting point. So we've seen many people use it as a starting point of, okay, if I was to do a very simple RAG using OpenSearch and have a system prompt and have a given, select a large language model and get the response out. And then we have tools for helping them iterate over the system prompt and continuously evaluating, again, using other LLMs or using human in the loop. We've also seen a lot of QA kind of work happening within that space. I remember when images were started to be supported, one of the initial use cases was taking screenshots of our applications and then asking the LLM to write testing, QA testing, like you know what I mean, like basically the steps for like QA and manual testing for these applications. So we've seen that as well as use case. So as you can see, like a very wide variety, which I think is what's so amazing about the technology, that it can give you really the space to be efficient in your workflow and in your work, no matter what you do. You're a QA developer, you are writing something new, or you debugging something, or you're a tester, etc.
The horror stories are that this will put us all out of work. You see that?
No, I so much I don't see it. What I see is, I think in my mind and the way that I see the world, first of all, I always believe that there's always a human involved. Like there's always a human involved in some capacity or another. There might be a human involved evaluating an LLM. There might be a human involved in writing the code for an LLM. There's always some human involved. But what I actually believe is that we as humans are amazing at finding more and more complicated things to do. That's why I believe we won't. What will happen is more naturally, more and more work will become easier, but that will be the easy work is becoming easier, and then we're making more complicated work. And then what I think is happening over time is just the definition of complicated changes over time. So something that was complicated, even without thinking LLM, something that was complicated, I don't know, even 4 or 5 years ago, it's not complicated now. I mean, even if you think about, like, people would say that C++ was complicated because you had to, write classes and having here. Actually, people would say that C was complicated because you had to manage your own memory and you had memory leaks. And then, oh, C++ came out. Happy days. So, you know what I mean? Like, I think what's happening is as technology evolves, things become simpler, but I think we find more complicated things to do. And as such, I think we're always around.
So that was in the development space and some really clear use cases and value there. For the organization as a whole, this 12,500 people using the LLM tools, what benefits are they getting and what is the organization seeing from it?
Yeah, so really it's everyone's tool for embedding in the workflow, in their day-to-day workflow and activities and making them easier. I can tell you use cases that I do. So for example, if I have to write a job spec, it's much easier for me now to upload the job spec that I wrote in the past and say, okay, based on this job spec, can you write a new job spec, but for this type of kind of like role? So there's a lot of things that like I think they are giving you like efficiencies and benefits from using, and that save you time from something that you were doing before. It's also a great starting point for a lot of like strategy and that type of like kind of work that one has to do, for a lot of presentations that one has to create. So I've used it for many presentations that I might do to give me some ideas that I then take and evolve. We see it a lot with people using it to figure out how they can create summaries on content. They can do, find facts from a specific content or a specific like document across the enterprise. So it could be that, it's a legal document that we use for our products, or it's like some document that was given to us by like terms and conditions on some new license that we might want to purchase. So there's many ways of basically leveraging this for giving you a starting point, and it really is always a starting point. It's never is the end point, it's the starting point. We also see a lot of use cases on, I would say, assistance, like customer support type of assistance or equivalent. So many cases where we have documents that are like our policies or user guides of different, tools and capabilities. The technology is like really, really good at having a user coming in and asking a question and then bringing back the answer and the relevant kind of instruction. So this is one of the use cases that we've seen had a tremendous amount of success, and it improves the experience of actually everyone. It improves the experience that of the support team that before would have to answer the question, the experience of the end user that is asking the question to get a quicker response. I think it's one of the use cases that it's like a win-win for everyone, really. But yeah, I would say I think I've seen the 3,000 distinct use cases, to be honest, at this moment in time, of one flavor or another. But yeah, it's kind of used for everything.
There's a lot we've covered there, Maria. If people want to continue the conversation, where would they find you?
They can find me at Thomson Reuters in Switzerland, but obviously they can find me in LinkedIn if they want to ask me a question about my work or about what we've done and how we approached AI or how we are approaching development as a whole. And obviously, we are trying as a team as much as possible to talk about the work and publish our work. So we are creating a blog right now on our technical approach, on how we've kind of approached the large language models, our choices on multi-cloud and things like that, which I think are very interesting, that a lot of people that they're starting their journey, they kind of asking the question, do I go with one provider or do I go with many? How do I deal with security? How do I deal with kind of making sure that I'm maintaining costs at arm's length? So we are writing some articles around that, but definitely I'm on LinkedIn, they can always find me there.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we'll make sure we publish a link to that article as well. Maria, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Shane.